All right, joining us now, great friend, Pennsylvania Senator, Mr. David McCormick, probably home in Pittsburgh. It's a good chance. David McCormick, the economy is booming. It's basically growing at a 4% annual rate right now. I keep repeating this, 3.8 in the second quarter. Atlanta Fed is saying 3.9 in the third quarter. We'll see where it winds up. I get all that stuff. So there's no inflation rate is coming down. So there's no reason why the Fed shouldn't ease. Here's what I want to ask you about. It's a prelude. When will we get rid of this Lisa Scott and all these allegations of mortgage fraud? If the president and the Supreme Court took out the Federal Trade Commissioner, I think they made that decision a week ago. If the president wants her out because of these allegations and the Fed chairman doesn't have the backbone to, put her on leave, then why shouldn't he take her out? Who cares anyway? She shouldn't. We don't need her for anything.
Well, hey, Larry, great to be with you. First of all, I completely agree with you on the economy. It's on fire. I was just in Europe. I mean, they would die. There's not a country in the world that wouldn't die for our economy. 3.8% GDP, $17 trillion of inbound foreign direct investment. It's an incredible economy. It's getting better, and this is going to be great. And consumer confidence among small businesses at an all-time high. So there's lots of good data. On the Federal Reserve, listen, the history of this is very clear. The Federal Reserve Chairman, Jerome Powell, has taken action in the past, not for legal violations, not for breaking of the law, but for breaking a policy with former Fed governors. And they left the Fed, resigned. So if there's evidence of wrongdoing on her part, the chair should ask her to resign. And the president in the statute, as you know, has the ability to fire her for cause. And if there's validation of the charges against her, he should absolutely do that if the Fed chair is not going to.
Well, I think the Supreme Court will rule in favor of Mr. Trump anyway. I think that's coming. Speaking of Europe, Europe can't get out of its own way. We're growing at 4%. They're not growing. Germany's in recession, negative GDPs. I mean, there may be some Eastern European countries. I don't want to include them. They tend to be a little more capitalistic oriented. But my big question to you is, why and when will they stop buying Russian oil? Mr. Trump has made a plea, right? He went in front of the United Nations. He had a lot to say, blasting climate change and blasting these countries for immigration policies. But hidden in there, or not so hidden, how are we going to end the Ukraine war if we keep financing Russia? And if European countries, who are the ones I would think that would want to end the war as fast as possible, they're financing Russia by still buying their oil. So why are they doing this?
You cannot have it both ways. You cannot be in Europe and say Ukraine and Russian aggression, which I agree is Russian aggression, threatens the stability of Europe. And at the same time, in Europe, in Turkey, in China and India, still having these enormous purchases of Russian oil, which is the sole source of income for that economy. And it was very interesting. In a recent trip to Europe, I basically said, listen, I'm a co-sponsor of this sanctions bill, this secondary sanctions bill in the Senate to put more pressure on Russia by secondary sanctions against China and India. The Europeans are unwilling to do the same thing. So listen, if they're serious about stability, America under President Trump is more than doing its part to bring stability. And I think more recently, the president's really taken a hard line against Putin. But the Europeans need to step up. Turkey needs to step up. And of course, China and India need to step up, and we need to put pressure on them with secondary sanctions if they don't.
I mean, if this has a Reagan feel to it, Senator. You go back. If the United States is growing at 4-ish, which really, I mean, the Federal Reserve says you can't grow faster than 1.5 or so forth. We're growing at 4. Okay, fine. If we're growing at 4 and Russia's shrinking, and you help Russia shrink by damaging the only real industry they have, which is oil and gas, besides nuclear weapons, that would do it too. Remember, Reagan said to Gorbachev, I can build SDI, you can't afford to. I can't because we're growing so fast and you're shrinking. This is kind of the same thing. That's why the Euros should help us make this contrast by crippling Russia and quit buying their only cash crop.
Absolutely. The economic power of the United States is driven in part by energy. So not only to turn off purchasing Russian oil and gas, but to turn on purchasing American natural gas, which obviously Pennsylvania is a huge driver of. So this is smart economic security policy for the Europeans and for America. And it's great economic policy for the United States. And it's a test. It's a test. They're talking out of both sides of their mouth. They can't say that America is not doing its part when America is stepping up in every way, and Europe's not willing to make some tough choices on the importing of Russian oil and gas and holding others, China and India, to account. So the future of Europe is really in the hands of the Europeans, in part by their willingness to take the economic steps, but also to take the national security steps to give Ukraine the security agreement that it's going to need. And that's what President Trump has said. And I think he's putting them in a place where they're going to have to do their part, finally.
Well, I hope so. I hope they listen very carefully. I hope they listen to you very carefully, Senator Dave McCormick. We appreciate your time very much. Take care.